Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Feels like the start of a school year, this. Or at least posters pre-assembly, anyway. Hello. I'm Darren. I'm Darren Sanders, it says in my script here, which is always kind for me to be reminded of. I'm the Liberal Democrat councillor for the Baffins ward. I'm also the Cabinet Member for Housing and Preventing Homelessness. Before I begin, I'm under orders to read out various pieces of safety information related to the Guildhall, which we are in today. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not use the lifts. Please assemble in the turning circle at the end of King Henry Street past the University's Park building. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust's fire marshal regulations, anyone who's signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. You'll also be ecstatic to know that this is being web streamed live. Catch-up, I'm told, is also available. But I have to draw everyone's attention to the fact that that does happen and is happening now. So everyone speaking via a microphone will be on camera, sorry, and that includes those making deputations, even more sorry. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly that they do not wish to be recorded. Please, can everyone use the microphones? It requires pressing a button that is on there in front of you, which will then turn red. And remember to switch them off when they have finished, otherwise everyone will hear everything. Now, my first role today is to introduce various people. So I will start on my left. Anna.
Anna Martin, Democratic Services.
George.
Councillor George Magic of the Paulsgrove Ward in opposition for this lovely cabinet role.
You're very kind. Thank you very much indeed. Meredith.
Meredith Hughes, Assistant Director for Buildings.
Steve Groves, Head of Building Maintenance.
James Hill, Director of Housing, Neighbourhood and Building Services.
Alan Denford, Group Accountant for Housing.
Maria Cole, Residents Consortium.
Thank you very much. We also have two people who are in the slightly less expensive seats at the back. Please yell who you are. You don't get away with it. That's right, well done.
Nicola Clanahan, Head of Housing Community Services, and Heidi Golder, Resident Engagement Team Leader.
Excellent. If you're to observe this, God help you. Right, so we've got various, we start with various apologies. The ones which I have received are from Councillor Cal Cookery, who is the Labour spokesman on housing and preventing homelessness, Councillor Daniel Weems, who is the Conservative spokesman on housing and preventing homelessness, and Mark Fitch, who is neither, but is the head of local authority housing. We now come to declarations of members' interests, which applies basically to me and George. I have none. George, do you have anything interesting to declare?
Nothing interesting to declare. No.
Good, thank you very much indeed. Right, we'll start with the what we call the update on the Safe at Home service, which is meant to be done by Claire Hardwick, who heads the private sector housing team within which the service exists, and Ellie O'Day, who is the team leader. Neither of them Maria. So, you've been deputed to do this, Sally. Marvellous.
Yes, I have. Thank you, Councillor. And good morning. So this report is to update councillors on the progress of work undertaken to action the agreed changes to the telecare service made by Cabinet members on the 8th of March to launch the rebranded Safe at Home service. The new brand, Safe at Home, was launched on the 24th of March. Since this time, all new customers have been able to access the new service offering. All existing customers have been moved over to the new customer management system, and their alarm triggers are now being handled by the new alarm receiving centre, Astroline. The new digital equipment is being installed for new customers as they join the service, and existing customers are currently having their equipment replaced, which is anticipated to be completed by March 2023. The team have undertaken a lot of activity to promote the service to stakeholders and prospective customers as outlined in the report. The team are working closely with Hive, Portsmouth's link officer, to support with hospital admission avoidance, and working with adult social care early prevention. Excuse me. Links have also been made with the U-Trust, adult social care and health colleagues and GPs. The service is working with the urgent community response team via NHS Solent to improve the responder service offered and try to alleviate pressures on ambulance services. As detailed in the report, there's been a reduction in customer numbers since the beginning of the financial year. The service is now offering to integrate the £55 upfront installation fee into a weekly charge, along with the safe at home rental charge. Officers are also focused on increasing referrals from practitioners, examining if there are other means by which customers could get help with the rental charge, and expanding the already sizable range of equipment available through the service. A new GPS-enabled device, excuse me, which will work outside of the home, will be launched shortly, which is anticipated to be a popular offering and appeal to a more diverse age range. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sally. Maria, did you have any comments on this from the residents' consortium point of view?
Just one actual question, Sally. Do you know the distance from the home that the GP pendant works?
Unfortunately, I don't know the exact distance. I can find that out for you, but I do know that with the new system, it does have a wider parameter, so they're able to move further away from the base unit. And obviously with this new gadget that's about to be launched, the GTEC Go, that's going to mean that people can actually go out of the home and still be in signal.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Sue, did you have anything at all?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Trevor, did you have anything at all? If you don't, that's absolutely fine.
No.
Okay, thank you for that. George?
No questions about this one, thank you, Darren.
Okay, thanks for that. I've got a couple, if that's all right, Sally. I read in paragraph 364 around how other local authorities are including telecare costs in their package of care, which seems an eminently sensible idea to me. I know there's a wider review of the adult social care provision we're offering in the city. How long do you think it's going to take before we can come back with ideas and maybe progress on a similar model to other places?
Well, we've already had some initial discussions with adult social care, and we've agreed to go away and come up with some more detail and put a presentation together for them so they can get a sort of sounder understanding of the offer that we have, which we're hoping to do in January. So I would imagine round about the end of February, beginning of March, we would have a clearer picture.
That's fine. Thank you for that. You say in the report you've lost customers, which appears to be 35 from my stats.
Yes.
Yeah, so 1,029 to 994 for the last year. What ways are we trying to further promote the service, particularly with the voluntary sector?
Yes, well, we had a meeting last week actually to kind of regroup around our marketing strategy. So the team are already going out to various groups across the city and doing presentations and demonstrating the kit that's available, including, all sorts of groups, whether it's, church groups or other voluntary agencies. And they have quite a list of smaller groups now that they are going out to over the new year. And we're also looking at other ways that we can market the product through social media and doing a repeat of the marketing so that we keep refreshing, picking up new customers that way.
No, I think that's very helpful, Sally, because I think this is going to be increasingly an invaluable service for lots of people. I know in the Baffins area we've just lost a befriending service, which is a bit of a shame for a whole raft of reasons. But I do think encouraging people to feel that they're less isolated and less vulnerable is increasingly important during the winter months and during this cost of living crisis in particular. And I'm delighted that we're able to offer something that will try and help. I would strongly encourage, I think that's the politest way I can describe it, greater integration with adult social care and see if we can include those care modellings, because people are, coming along saying they've got no money. To our homelessness services, they're reporting it to various social landlords. And I think also there's an opportunity to work with other social housing providers to see whether they can actually work with this system, because I think it really will benefit. That's a great thing, and I'm very grateful to you for coming back. And we'll see if we can increase it by 35 customers by this time next year.
Great.
Sorry, Maria, my fault. I didn't see you, my love.
Right, I just suddenly thought of a question about the charges. Are they settled by, I'm getting my words muddled up here. We're not out to make a profit, are we? So is this just covering the costs? That's what I'm trying to say, like the laundry tokens.
Yes, it does, yes. And the fees that people pay depend on the level of service that they want. So they want the basic package, it can start around £4.80, going up to the more sort of 24-hour response service, which goes up to around £15 per week.
There's no need to apologise, Maria. It's perfectly fine. It's a very valid point, because we want to try and make sure it costs us little, because looks like an excellent service. But we are under a duty to recover all our costs, which is one of the reasons why costs have been included. So with that, and hopefully with an update at some stage in the future, Sally, thank you very much for that report.
Thank you.
I now move to the donations to food banks, food larders and food pantries from council-owned vacated properties. Steve.
Thank you, Councillor. Excuse me. The purpose of this report, which is information only, is to report on the Council's approach to non-perishable food that is left in council-owned properties that we know as vacant properties. And the recommendation is that the Cabinet approve the plan. The background to the report is that the Council works very closely with Hive, who recently completed a survey of local food support providers. And the survey sort of highlighted really that the estimated demand for food banks has increased, but at the same point the usual suppliers of food at these food banks has reduced. So in sort of response really to that, obviously the Council is looking at opportunities to try and work with Hive in this context around how we can improve supply of food to these local food banks. So from a housing point of view, we obviously own 14,000 plus council properties, and out of those we have in the region of 850 properties that become vacant every year. So we did do a pilot to look at the off-island area, where we work quite closely with one of our service providers, ComServe, who cover that area. And the purpose of that was just to sort of see whether we can support that supply of food in those vacant properties. And what that highlighted really was that in most circumstances properties are cleared out completely in terms of our void process. That is obviously one of the objectives that we got with our void process, that the outgoing resident takes that responsibility to clear their property, because obviously that has a financial benefit for the council. But nonetheless, there were occasions when non-perishable food was left in the property, and that could then be redirected to local food banks, because what it is obviously important, and we recognise that every item counts, however small that is in terms of numbers. So from a plan point of view, and the purpose of the report obviously is we've been working with the housing officers to really reinforce the void process, and continue to explain that with outgoing residents that the property does need to be cleared completely, but also to work with residents, and probably more relevant is sort of where perhaps there's deceased estates, and working with the executors in those instances to make sure that housing officers are really providing advice as well to those outgoing residents around food banks, and where if they do so wish, they can directly go to those food banks and make those sort of contributions to improve food supply at those situations. We've also raised that at our core group meeting of our service providers on the 23rd of September, where we had a meeting, talked about the situation, talked about the pilot, and all the service providers signed up really to make sure that when we do work on void properties, that they do redirect any non-perishable food left in the voids to the local food banks or pantries or such like. And then within the report, we've highlighted where those and obviously we've passed it on to the service providers that they will they know where those food banks actually are. From a council perspective, there's no additional costs that would be incorporated just as part of the work that they already do. So the supervisors aren't running around delivering food to food banks, but they're really just taking that opportunity when they're in the void. Any non-perishable food, they will take that back to their offices, collate that, and then they will take that to whatever the local food bank is. So there is actually no charge, and the service providers would not be bearing any cost or indeed passing it on to us. So that was the report, Councillor.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Steve. Maria, did you have any comments or questions on that at all? No. Sue? No. George?
A few little bits.
Do what you like.
Do what I like. Okay, free reigns. Good, good. So I'm going to dig and go a bit political here, which is never good. First of all, are any of these new Penny Mordaunt-backed ones on this list? I can't see any of them currently, but will they end up on, i.e. the Paulsgrove Community Centre one, and the other ones that the Baffins one that she's kicked off with Hive? Are they going to be supported? They're not on the list currently, but are they going to be added to the list?
Obviously, we will update the list and make sure that the service providers are aware of whatever the local food banks are. So, if there is any updates or there's any changes, then we'll obviously make sure the contractors are aware of that. Perfect.
And Darren, I think that it's important that we try and become clear about these food pantries that are being opened currently. At 10 o'clock this morning, I randomly received a call from LBC, from the James O'Brien show, and I was unfortunately interviewed on there for 10 minutes. It was quite interesting, to be fair, because they brought up some history, which is always interesting and nice. But I'm on the call list for LBC if there's any questions in relation to Portsmouth North in particular. And obviously they're today discussing, it's obviously gone to national news about Penny Mordaunt obviously starting up these food banks and so on and so forth. Now, James will remember probably 3-4 months ago I inquired about this because, needless to say, as councillors we aren't allowed to use council property to essentially further our own personal political means, which is correct. And obviously I inquired to the council about how Penny Mordaunt and the local Conservative councillors are able to use our property to further their political means. And it was responded very correctly by Housing that they in fact are not, and that it's actually a Hive project which Penny Mordaunt is supporting through Hive, which is the right and correct thing to do. And obviously it's very beneficial because any way we can get food out to the people that need it is very important. But when the Conservative group are plastering across flyers across the city, and Penny Mordaunt's plastering flyers across the city saying that she has set up food banks and she has used it in council buildings, it unsettles me because that's a political game based on council property. So because the correct stance is the fact that we haven't done that because Hive have done it, I think that we need to be proactive and probably make a counter statement to the media to let them know this, because this morning when I was questioned on LBC, they had the full impression, which I've obviously corrected them on, they had the full impression that they were her pantries, that she has set up, that she has paid for, that she has organised, that she is the driving force of it, and she's quite simply not. She's just supplying a bit of food and being a figurehead for it. So as I say, I think it's important that the department, our department, make some form of statement or some form of point of clarification, because as I say, unfortunately, flyers are currently being printed saying that she has set up food banks within our council property. That's all.
Thanks for that, George. Yeah, So just for clarity, because in January, myself and Councillor Lynn Stagg, my Liberal Democrat colleague in Baffins, were talking to Penny and her team about setting one up in our own ward. Our understanding is that Penny has found, and I'm sure I will be corrected if I'm wrong, of about £5,000 for, this is way back, I mean, this is the start of the year, late last year, for these pantries in the Baffins electoral ward, which includes part of Southsea, in the Nelson electoral ward, and in the Paulsgrove electoral ward. It's clear that actually this is money. This isn't actually running it. And the rules of pantries in particular are around that local community groups are running it. So for instance, I'm not part of the Baffins Community Pantry, I understand, because they don't want to get too political either. And they're operating out of an independently owned church community centre in St Cuthbert's Church. So you will never get anything past the political material past the Advertising Standards Authority, because it's not even meant to be true, which is always fun. So we can't stop politicians from doing that sort of stuff. I remember Penny actually praised me and Lynn in her leaflets in my ward in the election, which was very kind of her. So you can't stop politicians saying what they say. You could try, we've all wanted to try, but that hasn't always worked. But the truth is these are voluntary projects. There are certain rules with pantries, which includes how far away from each other they are, which has screwed about 5 attempts from Lynn and me in Baffins to try and sort this out. I have agreed to 2 council buildings being used for pantries cum larders. One is Paulsgrove Community Centre and one is Somerstown Hub, because it's right that we let through these buildings. My turn to get a tad political. We as a Liberal Democrat administration have been very keen to establish larders, pantries and everything else, because we fully understand that people are going through incredibly tough times. They've just come out of a pandemic. Many people have got no money. Many people are reporting to housing associations and us with what I didn't know was called a negative budget, which I understand is no money. And I think we've got to do all we can to try and help. So I can't be responsible for what politicians say, except myself. But I can vouch for that. I can also say there's nothing wrong with the James O'Brien programme on LBC. As far as this is concerned, this is part of that package, because it seemed to me to be just stately obvious that if people have got spare food in their vacant properties, why not give it to food banks or larders or pantries or whatever? It provides significant social value, and that's why it's important that we're able to do this. I want all housing associations to do this. I want all social housing landlords to do this. I'd love to do all private landlords to do this as well, but we may not have as much control over them as we do with social landlords. So, Mered, if it's possible to write to them, to ask for them to do it, I would personally love to see the answers, because I assume it's all going to be a series of 3-letter answers called yes in each case. And then we can try and work together, because we've all got to work together to get through the cost of living crisis. And we've all got to try, as I say, to work together. Politicians will do what they do, but the important thing is to try and help people in whatever ways they can. James.
Thank you, Councillor Sanders. I just thought I'd clarify as well, or for completeness sake rather, we didn't draw it out as we presented the report, but this includes the stock that Portsmouth City Council holds in Havant Borough Council. And you'll notice on the list of food banks, pantries and larders, because they're very different things, it includes those that are situated in Havant, and we will continue to build that list as well. So we're using the stock in Havant to the benefit of Havant Borough Council and the local communities out there as well. That's very kind, and that's the right thing to do. And I would suggest that, I understand many social housing associations operate within Havant as well as Portsmouth. So we'll try and make sure we can boost that. And if there's any gentle way we can persuade our Havant colleagues, or our colleagues on Havant Council, to be equally proactive, that'll be useful. Because we've all got to do what we can to try and get people, often vulnerable, often scared, often worried, to try and live through this crisis that exists. Mered.
Yes, just to add, Councillor Sanders, that officers from Portsmouth City Council have a regular interlock meeting with our counterparts that haven't, and tabling of this report and the outcome from today, it will be part of the next agenda, so we can share that with our colleagues, and perhaps they can undertake a similar exercise with the RSLs that operate in their area as well.
I look forward to that happening, and I look forward to being out in the open. We've all got to work together. And if there are any barriers, I'm sure we can all work together to try and overcome them. But if no one else has got any further comments, then I'm incredibly grateful, Steve and Mered, for this. Please continue, and please try and persuade other people. We all should be working together. And so on that bombshell, as it's described, I would like to close the meeting, please, Anna, at 12:27 p.m.